Welcome back, honors. All right, great job today in class, right? Getting everything squared away, making sure we know when everything's due and everything else, right? But yeah, really, really good job today. We started talking about a couple of important things, and we mainly started getting into like the cultural growth of ancient Rome, right? We talked early on about their establishment, and Romulus and Remus, and the Etruscans, and all this stuff. But then today in class, we talked about a very important moment in which Rome got a little bit arrogant, right? In which Rome got very arrogant and took on these people known as the Gauls, right? And the Gauls are going to show up and they're going to sack and decimate Rome in 390 BC, as we know, hold them for ransom, right? And I didn't get to this part a little bit, but when they were actually paying their ransom off, you can see the Roman in the background dumping the gold on the scale, right? You can see the Gauls over here actually adding more weight to the other end of the scale, basically making the Romans pay extra money, right? And then when the Roman generals and governors were like, this isn't fair, you can't charge us more after you've just destroyed our city, Brennus then took his sword, dropped it on the scale on the other side, making it even heavier, and said, woe be to the fallen, right? Like basically saying, haha, cry it up all you want, we destroyed you. And then they left. Now this is an interesting moment, right? You've just been destroyed, your city's been burned, you've only got, like, a lot of your citizens ran away, so they're all still alive, but now you're faced with a choice, right? You're faced with how are you going to react to this moment in your founding and in your history, right? What are you going to do after you've been destroyed? Well, the Romans were destroyed by guys like this, right? So they were destroyed by barbarian Gallic warriors that maybe carried some iron weapons, maybe at the most had chainmail, but resorted mostly to wooden and cloth armor, right? Simple, kind of like by the even of later Roman standards. But Rome decides to organize, right? Rome is saying to themselves, we have just been destroyed. We were not ready. Our fortifications were not ready. Our wall wasn't strong enough. That wasn't good enough. We can never allow this to happen again. And what they do is they organize their military, right? And they begin adopting the system known as the legion, right? So they begin to bring in citizen soldiers, right, who would buy their own equipment and bring in themselves into the army for a certain amount of time, right? Usually it was about 6 years if you could actually live all the way through it. And these citizen armies, right, again, really quick, it's a citizen army, not a professional army, very different, right? Jot that down. It's a citizen army, right? And they organized them into legions, right? And these legions were made up of 4,000 to 6,000 guys, right? 6,000 men. And by the height of the Roman Empire, they had over 1,000 legions, right? So they had millions of soldiers ready to go by the time, actually, yeah, it was over 1 million soldiers, because I think it was actually over 120,000 different legions. How many legions of Rome did Rome have? There we go. But anyway, these legions, yes, according to this, it says by under Tiberius, which is 24 AD, there were 125,000 legions, right? And that means in the millions of soldiers, right? And then they're going to start going out and they're going to start taking over other parts of Italy, right? Because they've been destroyed by the Gauls, and now their army is becoming hyper-organized, and they're actually turning it into systems like this. This is what a Roman legion would look like. You would have light troops, reserves, cohorts of individual people known as legionnaires, right, or legionaries. You would have cavalry units, and as well as multiple other divisions of your military, right? So it became a hyper-organized military force. Now, this is, of course, by the height of the Empire period, right? And again, remember, they got sacked by guys like these, but by the height of their Empire period, Rome would have soldiers like this, right? I know he doesn't look as intimidating, kind of looks short, but like he would actually be better equipped, better armored, better used and much more intense than a Gallic warrior. And so by the time that Rome organized its military and decides to strike out, they are technologically now the most advanced military that the world has ever seen, right? So looking at some of these different items that they actually had of their possession, right? These are some of the irregular Roman infantry weapons, right? And jot a couple of these down just so you can understand Roman military technology, right? So this didn't start out originally, right? Once they got sacked by the Gauls in 390, it took them over 100 years to get to this point. But the important thing is that with the organization then came technological development. And by the height of the Roman Empire period, you could see weapons like a pilum, which is this half spear, half sword. It's got a wooden shaft and then a spearhead on top. And it was very, very good, using in conjunction with their cylindrical shield system that they would actually use to create shield walls of troops. and basically forming a phalanx, right? Like a hoplite army from Rome, or not from Rome, but Greece, but making it much more efficient, right? They would carry things like this also, a pugia, which is a sidearm dagger, but this was the regular sword used by the Roman infantry and by the Roman soldiers. That is a gladius, right? A gladius short sword that it actually was very, very efficient, very balanced, and very good in close combat, right? They also then went on to develop crossbows, a mechanized bow and arrow system to try and take out so much of the aiming and skill required for actually firing these weapons. Metal helmets. This is a cavalry unit helmet, right? This thing is really awesome. This thing right here is called a ballista, right? And a ballista is basically a gigantic crossbow, right? So very, very large, used for siege cannon. And then also, like, this is another form of a ballista, and this ballista actually launches rocks and other projectiles very, very far. But speaking of, the Romans also were the very first to, like, pioneer the catapult, right? A catapult that would launch, not rocks, because that's not effective, right? It would actually launch giant pots of burning fluid, right? So they would launch things like, I'm going to say it, you're all going to freak out. They would launch, like, burning pots of oil, so when it shattered on trees, it would then light up the area around them, right? And they would also throw some other projectiles, right, if they had it or if they had to use them, right, later on. But the Roman catapult became one of the best siege devices and also protectionary devices the Roman military ever developed, right? These also make me cringe. The Roman military would lay these out in a battlefield before the night before, encouraging a barbarian to actually charge at them, and they were basically barbed wire spikes that were laid all over the battlefield, and when the barbarians would rush over it, or if they drove horses over it, they would step on these things, puncturing their feet and making it very hard for them to fight, right? So this is another little defensive structure. But this one right here, I don't know why I'm so obsessed with them, but I am. I don't want to wear them. I don't want to buy them, right? But that right there is called a caliga, right? And caliga is the standard issue Roman military boot that they would wear, right? And the cool thing about the caligas is it's like the oncoming onslaught of the Roman military. Because as you can see on the bottom of these caligas, right, there were hobnails all over the bottom of them, right, to keep the thing together. Now, the thing about it, though, is those hobnails could be used for stepping on and crushing bone, but they could also be heard coming from over a mile away. Now, remember, a legion is several thousand troops, right? And so if a legion is marching towards you, and multiple legions at that, you're talking about 15, 18,000 troops all marching with with metal-soled shoes, and the thunder, they said, could be heard for miles. When Roman legions arrived, it was clow, clow, clow. They were just marching, and it sounded like a storm was on the way. So, as you can believe, by about 200 BC, the Romans kind of held most of the Italian peninsula. They were a threat. They were an extensive threat, right? Their technological development, including their swords, their crossbows, their catapults, and all these other things, made them an army that was very difficult to stop, right? And so by 200 BC, the Romans had extended their power throughout most of the Italian peninsula. And actually, I take that back. That was before those weapons were even really used or invented. But just the organization of the army alone gave them the ability to take over the Etruscans, the Umbrians, the Samnites, the Sabines to their south, also as well as many, many other areas as well, right? And they're going to begin to establish colonies all throughout Italy and develop Roman cities throughout places that they actually took over. Now, originally, they also even extended citizenship to many of the people that they actually took over that existed in the Italian peninsula, right? And then also, on top of that, I need you to write this phrase down. It's so important. All roads lead to Rome, all right? So all roads lead to Rome, right? Like a very intense saying that kind of defined Roman infrastructure following this time period as well. So Romans are going to then begin to create an infrastructure of roads that connected the empire as it grew, especially throughout all of Italy, right? The most famous one, jot this down, being the Appian Way, all right? So it actually cut through the Apennine Mountains and was a road that actually made the rest of Italy tradable, traversable, and easy to get to using this road that cut through the mountains, right? So Roman roads were built and they connected everything to share the fruits of their conquering with their new citizens. And some roads were simple. Some roads were like a dirt path. But other roads were extremely extensive, and that right there is a picture of the Appian Way going out towards the Appian Mountains, right? So Some of the roads were very, very intricate, very technologically advanced, that had stone blocks on top, and then had cement, and then also slabs underneath it, and drainage ditches that made their empire very easy to navigate. And it was also known that, since all roads lead to Rome, that if you follow this road long enough, it will take you back to the mother city of Rome, right? So as you can see, with their military, like legionary actually standing right there on the side of the road, taking over people becomes a very Roman cultural idea, right? Following the sacking of the Gauls in 390 BC, the Romans go out and begin to assert their culture over most of Italy. And then later on, we're going to see, even in North Africa, when they fight a group of people known as the Carthaginians, right? So going forward, though, Roman history is divided into just 3 time periods. I know some of you are like, whoa, back up, Terry. You're telling me you're just now talking about the Roman time periods? Yes, I am just now talking about the Roman time periods, all right? Because all the stuff that comes first is kind of like the cultural foundings of Rome, right? When you're talking about their earliest time period, which is known as their kingdom period, which we just kind of wrapped up, right? Even though, ironically enough, inside of the Republic period, the sacking of the Gauls occurred, right? But if you're looking at Rome, from about 753 BC to about 390 BC, you're talking about major cultural developments, right? You're talking about Romulus and Remus being the mythological founding. You're talking about the real founders being the Latins. You're talking about the takeover of other tribes nearby, like the Sabines. You're talking about like all these other, Cincinnatus becoming the first dictator. You're talking about the development of the Republic in 509 BC, which we're about to get to now, right? But yes, we've been jumping around. We've been analyzing all this stuff. This is supposed to say 390, by the way, 390. When we've been talking about all this stuff, we've been kind of jumping around just a little bit, mainly due to the fact that we're talking about Rome as a culture, right? We're talking about why Rome's military was so strong. We're talking about why Rome was founded as a kingdom, right, and its original founding story. We then talked about why it's really important when they kicked the Etruscans out and they now founded themselves as a republic, which is what we're getting into now, right? So you just need to be able to know that as of this point in Rome, we're talking about all the different cultural facets of it, right? And they had 3 time periods that all these cultural facets span. And it's the kingdom, the republic, and the empire, right? And the empire being their period of their most ultimate height when it comes to culture, but downfall when it comes to politics, all right? So, because our boy JC, I'm not even going to do it right now. But what we're moving into now, right? We're talking about our last cultural Roman thing, right? Before we get into some more chronological stuff, okay? So the last super important Roman Republic thing, or excuse me, I just said it, thing of Rome is their republic, right? So jot this down really quick. The republic was founded in 509 BC when the Romans expelled the last Etruscan king, right? Underline that. Very important. His name was Servilius Tullius something or other that means really arrogant, right? So I think it's like pompous or something like that. Superbus, yeah. Servilius Tullius Superbus, right? So, and he was an Etruscan king, right? And following a very intense story about where apparently his son went off and assaulted a Roman woman, the Romans would then expel the Etruscans out. And in 509 BC, they decide that they will never have a king ever again, and they found a system of a republic, right? And what a republic is it's ruled by the people. And it became such a famous and well-to-do and understandable facet of the Roman era that they condensed the entirety of their government into 4 basic letters. S-P-Q-R, right? S-P-Q-R becomes the guiding light and personification of Rome in the most cultural sense. This stuff would be slapped on banners in the army. It would be tattooed onto the arms of legionary soldiers. It also, in the modern era, is all over the modern city of Rome. This is a sewer cover, and what's on top of it? I took this picture in Rome. No, that is not my cigarette butt, all right? So, that is not my gum, but literally, S-P-Q-R on manhole covers. It's on trash cans. It's on shirts. It's on the whatchamacallit. It's on the SC Roma seal on their chest, right? S-P-Q-R, the Roman Republic, literally becomes their biggest cultural donation to Western civilizations. And what does it mean? As Mr. Terry literally spelt it terribly. Don't ignore this. Ignore this. It comes up later, all right? It means, in Latin, Senatus Populus Romanum, right? Or Romanus, like depending on how you're using it. And it means the Roman Senate and people, right? So, and the Roman Senate is the core part of the Roman Republic, right? Now, we're going to get to that here in a second, but also the establishment of the Roman Republic occurred right around, as we know, circa 500 BC, right? And it all is believed to have expanded out of this particular area. The Roman Republic, its home is here. It is called the Forum of Rome, right? So going all the way back to when we talked about, there it is. Wow, I just found it. Going all the way back to when we talked about the foundings of Rome, right? Rome was founded on 7 hills along the banks of the Tiber River, right? And this area in the middle was originally a cemetery, right? It was a disgusting, boggy kind of cemetery, and it was a trash pit as well. And also some animals would be allowed to graze there, right? Due to the fact that the Tiber River would flood, and it would flood this area routinely, right? Now, when the Roman Republic is established in 509 BC, the Romans decide to build river walls to control the flooding, right? And then they establish in the middle of those hills their marketplace, their city center, the heart. If Rome had organs, the Forum is its heart, right? And so following that, they built the Forum on top of an old cemetery, right? And yes, there are still a lot of archaeological digs that actually occur here in the Roman Forum, and this is the Roman Forum in the modern era. Now, the Roman Forum, when it was at its height, was covered in marble temples to their different gods. There was a temple of Jupiter and a temple of Juno, and then there was the Vestal Virgin Monument down here, right, where they had to keep that fire burning at all times to their goddess Vesta, who was the goddess of the hearth and the fire and the home, right? So, like, it was a city center. It had a marketplace. It had the temples. And the Senate would meet in the Forum. That is very important. So we're talking about a lot of stuff. You need to jot that stuff down, right? The Senate would meet there. It was a marketplace. It had religious temples. The Forum is the essence of Rome, right? And this is me standing in the Forum, right? This is when I went to Rome with my wife. And I absolutely love it. Thanks a lot for calling me out on that today, Liqueur, right? We do love to travel to Europe. But yes, this is actually a picture of me standing in Rome in the middle of the Forum, right? With the ruins of Rome behind me, doing God knows what with my face. I hate trying to smile for pictures, and this is me and my wife. Look how cute she is. Let's just cover me up real quick, because that is a hideous looking face right there, right? So, but look how cute she is. This is her face whenever I won't stop talking about history stuff whenever we're in Europe, but she enjoys it. So anyway, now, that is us actually standing down in the Forum itself, and then also other important aspects about the Forum as well. So we just talked about it's where the Senate would meet, it's where their government was focused, it was a marketplace, it was originally a cemetery, it was their religious temple area, very important. Because the Senate had no hall, the Senate had no place where they met every single time. They had to be like, oh, let's go to the Senate building. It didn't exist, right? So literally they would be like, oh, we're going to meet in the Temple of Jupiter today, or we're going to meet in the Temple of Juno today, or we're going to go to the Recontra and address the people, which is a big podium that they would speak at, right? But they had no specific place, so they would just go to the Forum, right? And the Forum was also home to things like this. That right there is a victory arch, right? It is an arch to the Roman Emperor Titus, right? And like this is going to be erected much later than what we're talking about right now. But Romans would erect victory arches every single time they would actually conquer another group of people. And this was actually erected, ironically enough, when Jerusalem was taken over, right? So there's actually a lot of Jewish relics on the inside carved into the edges of the actual Arch of Titus, showing them bringing back like a candelabra and a menorah and a lot of loot from taking over Jerusalem, right? And this is me standing in front of it. And this road that I'm standing on is the parade area. Whenever senators, consuls, and other important figures would be elected, this road is the procession road that they would ride down into the Forum on, having a giant parade, right? And if you were declared an imperator, that means you were a general that has just taken over a huge amount of land, and that means you would ride through the arches of victory, through the past generals that came before you, and the people would cheer for you as you entered into the Forum. And no, this is not my arm, all right? I hate this guy, this Swedish dude, whoever you are, if you're watching this right now, ruin this picture because this is me. Look how good I look with my face looking the other way, right? And then he ruined my picture because this looks like my arm, but it's his leg, all right? So anyway, now, This is also really important. This is me standing at the base of also living quarters that lined the outside of the forum, right? So jot this down. Apartments lined the outside of the forum. Most Roman citizens lived inside of a thing that you would today call an apartment, right? So it's this this is the retaining wall, and as you can see, the floors are now all gone, but I'm actually standing at the base of where those apartments would have been, right? So big thing, though, that you need to know, okay? There are some words that you need to know, okay? So you've got the republic, which is very, very important, right? That's the government chosen by the people. You've got consuls, which are two elected leaders. These are just kind of vocab terms you need to know going into the next thing, right? So put these over off to the side and just be like, okay, these are important words I need to remember, all right? So republic is what they've created, right, in 509 BC, and it's a government ruled by the chosen people. They have a consul. There are two of them, right? They are elected officials and magistrates of Rome. They basically function as leaders of the republic, right? Then you have a dictator, which is important that we're going to bring up those guys later. And the dictator is over here on the right, and they only come in during a time of war, and then they're supposed to step down. And then you have the Senate, which is the supreme council and the highest governing body of Rome, right? Now, ironically enough, they can't necessarily make law, but they influence it, and they advise the consuls on how to handle the problems going on within the Roman Empire, right? So these are all very, very important. Make sure you jot these down, and we're going to go ahead and cut the flip off right there because I know y'all got a lot to do this evening. But I'll see you guys soon. Y'all have a good one.